The Library of Tibetan Works and Archives is one of the first institutes in the world specializing in Buddhist and Tibetan studies, providing comprehensive resources and attracting increasing number of scholars, researchers, students and visitors from around the world. This year marks its 50th founding anniversary. Let's talk about the initial challenges, its significance and the current functioning of the library with its director, Geshe Lhakdor. Geshe Lhakdor, welcome to our show. It's really nice to have you here again.
Thank you.
So, Geshe, congratulations on the Golden Jubilee celebration of the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives. How do you feel about hitting the 50-year mark?
Personally speaking, I'm not too keen about celebrations because celebration must be a part of your daily life. So what really matters is how you work, what you do, in a regular daily basis, not just celebration of an event. Having said that, it is kind of norm, and in Buddhism also we have a practice called rejoicing. That means having done something, then there is an occasion for you to almost like sing and dance and rejoice. 50 years is actually a quite long time in a human life, because if you're somebody born 50 years ago, and then today if you're 50 years old, you've almost finished more than half of your life. And especially in the case of my institute, as His Holiness said right in the beginning, that the works that the library is going to do is meritorious. That is something beneficial to everybody. And this is true because our main job is to preserve and disseminate Tibetan culture and religion, which is basically rooted in compassion and non-violence, which is so much needed in today's world. So therefore, this is really a very happy occasion to celebrate. And yesterday we did a short ceremony because of the present situation, and we hope to do it on a little bit more grand scale in the coming years.
The library being one of the first and the most important institutes that works in specializing in Buddhist and Tibetan studies and in establishing them in the early years in exile, it must have been quite challenging. Can you tell us what did it take for the institute to reach this level?
This is a very relevant question because any noble work is challenging right in the beginning. Especially if it is a work related to an institution for a special goal, then it takes a lot of effort, and obstacles are bound to come. And His Holiness actually predicted that right in the beginning when he gave the kind of foundation laying ceremony. During that he said, it will be challenging because especially in those days, 50 years ago, we don't have much financial facilities and also don't have much experience. But he said, I'm fully confident that this will succeed and it must succeed. And he said this is a very important venture and we must succeed. So just without taking much time, if I say just few lines, for example, if you just think about how the construction has been done, it has been done by individual volunteers from the Tibetan community because we have shortage of fund and so forth. And everybody was like happily contributing their part, whether it's just lifting a stone and things like that. And the overseer of that construction, even if somebody goes for bathroom, he would make sure that they just went to bathroom and not loitering somewhere else. So that much really joy and effort was there in those days. So, and because of the people's readiness to face those challenges and their understanding of the importance of this institute, so right from the laying of the foundation and the construction work, people worked very hard. And then to be honest, as we get more and more facilities, that hard work which is there, that commitment, the sense of responsibility that's there right in the beginning, gradually it diminishes a little bit. So that is a kind of drawback that is happening everywhere. But anyway, like if I briefly tell you something, in the beginning when it started, it actually opened on 1971, 1st November, started working. And during that time we had around 10-12 staffs only, and then it kept on like increasing. And even when I became director in 2005, we had 40 staffs. Now we have 63 staffs. So which means increase in not only the staffs but the resources, the activities and so forth. So when you start all these new initiatives and recruit new staffs, of course, by its very nature, it's very challenging. Actually, this thing called challenge, how would you accept that challenge depends on the person. If you see that challenge as an opportunity and happily embrace it, then everything can be achieved. So therefore, because of that commitment and determination of the staffs right from the beginning, and more importantly, the blessing of His Holiness and the support of Indian government, we are able to face those challenges, and we made slow but definite progress in the right direction.
Geshe, we know that there are many manuscripts, documents and museum pieces that were brought from Tibet itself. Tell us, how are the other resource materials developed?
No, just like the development of number of staffs, the resources, development of resource is also a gradual process. Actually, all these resources, important resources, actually started arriving after 1959, 60, 61, 62, around that time, when the Tibetans, whatever they managed to bring, a holy statue or a thangka, whatever they managed to bring, that was the most important thing for them to bring. And when they safely escaped into India, the first thing they thought was, we cannot take care of it, let us offer it to His Holiness. And His Holiness then gradually said it will be a good idea if we establish a special place where we house all these artifacts, so that people can pay their respect or do research or whatever. That is how the whole institute came into being. So some of the collections that we have both in the English section of the library and the Tibetan section of the library, like we have almost all the versions of the Kanjur and Tenjur, from the Dege, from the Peking, from the Choni, from the Narthang, and then especially the Phugda Kanjur, which probably is the only one the Tibetan library has, and not the rest of the world, and things like that. And because of that, we have now started scanning it. As and when there is a possibility to get any old manuscript, to copy it, we do it. So therefore, right now, we're happy to say that we are one of the best collection on Tibetan resources, probably in the world.
Library of Tibetan Works and Archives is not just a place where they go there to read books in the library, or they go to look at the museum pieces in the museum, but the library actually provides much more than that. Exactly. Can you please tell us what other resources and facilities does the library provide?
When His Holiness opened this institute, the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, what he said was, already there are other centers for Tibetan studies already established in Tibet House and the Namgyal Institute of Tibetology and Gangto and things like that. And then why we are having another institute here in Dharamsala. And His Holiness said, number one, as far as the Tibetan studies centers are concerned, the more the better. So we should establish more. There is one reason. The second, which is even more important reason, is that in the other institutes, there may be books to read, there may be some teachers teaching, things like that, which is wonderful. But the special advantage of having an institute in Dharamsala, especially in those days, was the top eminent Buddhist teachers, practitioners, like His Holiness, two tutors, Sergung Senjab Rinpoche, Dema Locho Rinpoche, so many stalwarts, really, they were there. So His Holiness said, so it's not just going to the library, reading the book and learning from the teacher there in the institute, but you can, those who are really interested, they can actually receive the actual direct experience and blessing from these living masters, which is hard to able in other institutes. So that was really the selling point, the key point, and that's why these days also we try our best to make sure that the people don't just get the academic knowledge, which you can get actually anywhere, but to really get that lived experience, so that they themselves become compassionate, non-violent, and then go to the rest of the world and make the contribution. Yeah.
And also the library, it also teaches Tibetan languages to so many visitors. And also you have, you mentioned about the nuns
Yes.
having workshops. Can you tell us a little bit about that too, the importance and everything?
Yeah, we do, like we have in the library, we have 10 different sections. Under the section of the research and translation, we run classes throughout the year. For example, 3 Buddhist classes every day, 3 Tibetan language classes every day. It's not like 1 week course or 1 month course. It's a whole year course, except the winter break and so forth. And those are attended by people all over the world. So that's one thing. Then plus some of the new initiatives that we made was the establishment of the science center, and through which we have 6-7 people working there in the science department, and we bring Western teachers to monasteries and nunneries and teach science. Every year we have at least 4 or 5 science workshops. And latterly we also made it a point to specially focus on the nuns. And we already had 2 workshops specially for the nuns. And right now, because we cannot, organize that workshop, so we are doing online. We have started just few days back. So online, we have translators and teachers from the West, and the nuns are getting the science classes and things like that. Yeah.
So the materials and the documents that the Institute possess are very valuable. So how do you make sure that these materials are protected and maintained?
One thing that I clearly realized that I should pay attention was that it is, yes, of course, it is important to preserve all these ancient Tibetan sacred manuscripts and so forth, but we should do the work of preservation and dissemination of this Tibetan culture and resources by using modern media. That was my focus. And since then, since many years, I made a lot of effort. And through that, I'm happy to say now, big chunk of the manuscripts that we have are all digitized. And the digitization process is going on still. And once we are able to digitize all this, then advantages you can have that copy in any other part of the world. God forbid if something happens in Dharamsala, because Dharamsala is a earthquake zone number 5. So something happens here, at least we have the copies, in other places and things like that. And then also, like in the library section, also installing the dehumidifier and things like that. So we are using as much as possible to use modern media. This is very important for me because, the Tibetans in general, especially the Tibetan refugees, are a small population and with very limited resources. So therefore, I have been telling people we must be clever. Clever means using modern media and technology. With just pushing a button, you can reach everywhere, as you know so well. So there's my focus. So there's the process we are trying to preserve.
So Geshe, roughly in a year, how many visitors do you receive?
I don't have the exact count, but normally when we, for example, do a review after 3 months, how many people have attended, we find almost all the time around, people from around 40 different countries are visiting and attending the Tibetan, Buddhist and language classes, including the visitors to the museum and things like that, and people who come to see me and things like that. It will be like 6,000, 7,000 minimum.
So Geshe, what major developments have you noticed here in Library of Tibetan Works and Archives compared to the earlier times?
Yeah, that question was asked to me by the some other people also. So, which is actually talking about my achievement. So, as I was saying, that Tibetan language, religion, culture is very important. But it is even more important to make it relevant in today's world. Buddhism must make sense in today's world. And it is because of that drive we are using, as I already mentioned, using modern media and technology. Because of that, we established that 3-4 story big science center. And now we are in the process of, it will of course take time. We are in the process of establishing a proper distance learning center. And even before that, we have already launched online Buddhist classes. Almost every day our teachers are online teaching Buddhism. And from next Tuesday, we are also launching science teaching in Tibetan language it will be a continuous program, things like that. So we are planning to do more, because not only because of this experience of the pandemic, but because of the rapid progress and development of science and technology, we must use it. So therefore, distance learning and teaching through online and modern media is extremely important. The development of the science center, and then also the development of this 3 months intensive translators training, which I started just the next year I become director. Since then, hundreds of young Tibetans have undergone that translators training. Then 2 months cultural research training. Then the establishment of the separate Hindi section, which was not there. I called it Repaying the Kindness Project, because we live in India, and it becomes very important to say thank you to India. One of the best way of saying thank you to India is to give back the Buddhist knowledge, Buddhist wisdom which we got from India. So things like that. So number of new initiatives are there.
Geshe, it's always lovely and wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming back to our show and talking to us.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode of In Conversation with Tibettv.